What is happening, y'all? It is Pop Blender going live one more time after a House of the Dragon episode number 6. and let's just say that this episode had a lot of setup, some tension, and not as much action as everybody was hoping for. I think a lot of people were hoping for battles, but we have a long way to go. And I think that's why they are planning on a season 3 and possibly even a season 4, depending on how this show retains its audience. And it has retained its audience pretty well. So, nonetheless, episode 6 is titled Small Folk. If you see me checking my phone or maybe looking like I'm referencing some things, that both of those things could be very well true. But I did want to say that my mother, her best friend, since she was probably about 5 years old, 4 years old, 5, something like that, passed away tonight at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. And man, I hope we all have friends that are with us for that long. I really do. My mother is 75 years old, and this has been her best friend for most all of those years. And it's a tough thing to go through. So if I have to check my phone or kind of look down or get a phone call or maybe even have to end the stream, depending on what's going on, I apologize for that. I don't expect many people to tune into this stream because there are people far more qualified and far better than I am to talk about this show. And as much as I'd love to be watching them right now, um, I want to do my own. And that is the journey and life of someone who's trying to be on YouTube and enjoy and love talking for a living and love talking to people on camera or whatever. So, without further ado, we will get into it and try to have a little fun with this. We'll go through the episode. I'll scrub through it a little bit, see what we can get to, and it's a lot of setup. But if you remember last episode, it was Team Black, Rhaenyra, and her son Jace trying to figure out about dragon riders and whether or not they could get dragon riders to who didn't have full royal blood. But as we've come to understand, to be able to tame a dragon, the Valerians wrote a lot of history, but they wrote that history in a certain point of view, which is not unusual for people who write history. And our own history will be written hundreds of years from now, and there will be things that are passed along, there will be things that are left out. But history usually goes to the victors. Now, in our current world, our current day, we don't understand what that's like to have been usurped or had a change other than our democratic change. And so, from that perspective, we can only delve into this world and to other worlds in our personal history, humankind, and look at empires that have risen and fallen. So, from a personal perspective, United States kind of thing, very difficult to relate, to that, so to speak. However, dealing in the world of George R.R. Martin and the Song of Ice and Fire and everything that's involved there, then they also have had many, many decades, centuries of history, and some of those have fallen by the wayside. And so, history usually is written by the victors or unreliable narrators. Now, the books use that quite often, the unreliable narrator trope, so to speak, or whatever, but they use it to great effect. Once again, we kind of get this in this show, so to speak, because there's so many voices behind the scenes, there's so many players involved. But if you're a fan of Game of Thrones, I highly implore you to watch this show, see if you enjoy it. I think you will. I think it's very well written. It's one of the best things on television right now. And you know, if you're struggling to find something worthwhile to watch these days, then this show will probably satiate that desire. Now, I'm not going to say that this show has not changed some things from the books. And there was one, I say, not a big change, but a current day political change within our landscape. And it happens at the very end of this episode, practically. And I think it's odd. It's kind of out of place, so to speak. You can see it building up. Still not a fan of it. I think it kinda comes out of nowhere, and so we'll get into that here in just a bit. So, let me pop on a little background music here, get a little something going for us. Right, yeah, get in the mood. Alright, anyway, enough playing around. So this episode, I don't wanna give it a rating. I don't like to give ratings to episodes. I'm not a professional, reviewer, so to speak, but I do like watching stuff and I do like talking about it. So I'm not going to give it a rating, but I will say this was a fine episode. I think it's very good. There's some compelling parts to it. And at the same token, the very end of it pulled me completely out of the show and put me right into a current day political landscape. And that's really a shame. I hate for that to happen, but it does happen. Not real crazy about it. Um, but we'll get into it. So let's just jump right in. Very beginning of this episode, we have the Lannister armies that are marching, and they appear to have had a long march, and we see them approaching city at this point right now. They have thousands of people at their disposal. However, Prince Aemon is, or at this point, Prince Regent or King Aemon, as he would rather be called, is not with them. And the Lannisters are, at this point, pretty tired, and they want to continue marching on and go into Harrenhal. However, uh, if Aemon's not with them, they pretty much want to delay their march. They're tired. They're kind of been going on, and Aemon is at King's Landing, and really kind of just hanging out. He's not really thrilled with this decision to stop off and take a break. And when greeted, the Lannister army, who have lions actually in cages, which is actually really funny. Lions in cages, which I think is interesting because it's like, what are those lions going to do if they let them out of the cages? What are they going to do? Actually, customary, I'm sure, with their armies, and it's a show of strength. But what are they actually, really, truthfully going to do when let out of those cages? It's not like they're trained, so to speak. But nonetheless, they decide they want to stop over and take a break for a little bit. And Aemon is not thrilled about this, actually. And in the small council meeting with House Green, Aemon is very upset. And he starts to question his council about, the fact that he's been summoned. The Lannister army wants him to come there. They will march no further until he joins them on Vhagar. He is not very happy about that because he has put his pieces into play, and he is really upset about being summoned. Now, I'm sure a lot of the people right now in the realm who don't know, or who do know rather, don't truly look at him as the true king. They know that he is the next in line in succession, so to speak. However, they don't really look at him as king. They look at him as the the prince, and he is the regent. He is in place of Aegon at this moment, but he is in charge nonetheless. And so he gives orders to his council, including, if I can find it here, to the Lannister on his council that, he needs to get his brother to continue marching. It's not about the fact that Aemon needs to be there or needs to show up, but he starts to make threats to his council. And then, of course, Alicent speaks up and she says, look, we need to make sure that the Riverlands, those people are handled with care. He tells Alicent basically just to shut up. And he wants to make an alliance with the Triarchy. Of course, the Triarchy being, most of the Riverlands. I apologize, guys. I'm getting a message from my mother right now about her friend. And if you didn't catch the beginning of the stream, I apologize. But I apologize for that. I'm just trying to get this message in. As I said before at the top of the stream, my mother's best friend passed away, and I'm just trying to get some information here. So my apologies for that. Nonetheless, the Triarchy mainly consists of the Free Cities, and the Free Cities are people that are not really in alliance with the crown, so to speak. They kind of do their own thing, and so with Aemon trying to make an alliance with the Free Cities, you're talking about people who really could change alliances at any moment, and it's not really a good idea. Alicent tries to tell him that is not such a good idea, but Aemon, of course, at this point, he's sowing. He's feeling his oats. He's feeling like, hey, I'm the king now. I'm in charge, and so I'll do whatever I want. And he feels like these are the best strategies. Now, he is a pretty strategic person. He actually is very good at strategy, better than his brother, Aegon, that was king. But he's still a young man, and he doesn't fully understand the histories. He did study more than his brother, but this is still some things that elude him. He makes it a point to tell his Lannister on the council that he needs to make this happen with his brother. He needs to make the alliance happen. The armies need to be marching. The blockade has cost the small folk in the red, in King's Landing to start to really go crazy. They don't have enough food. Meanwhile, all of the animals and stuff are being slaughtered for the dragons. Real quick, what's going on, Todd C? Man, you lurk along, dude. Whatever you want to do, man. I'm just talking. I am just talking. So you lurk, pop back and forth, go whatever. Watch whatever you need to watch, my man. I'm just kind of a little out of sorts, but I figured I'd jump on and do a little quick talk about episode 6, House of the Dragon. So I fully understand. And it's been a long weekend for me. My voice is still a little toast, but we'll see what I can get done. Nonetheless, Aemon talks about the Triarchy basically wanting to be able to terrorize Lord Corliss because of this blockade. And these are people that would love nothing more than to try to fight and, take back territories, or at the very least, take out some ships and stuff that Lord Corliss has. So nonetheless, again, and it says here the Triarchy may play at accepting terms, but they're not to be trusted, and no one could really trust them because, again, they do not really serve anyone but themselves, and they could change at a moment's notice. It depends on which way the wind is blowing, and that is not unusual with a lot of people actually in Westeros. Some people will wait until they know who the victor is going to be, then they will uh, change sides. Some people delay their armies, depending on the outcome of the battle. And so that's not an unusual thing, unusual at all. Um, and so nonetheless, Sir Kristen Cole advises Aemon that, at this point, because they suffered losses at Rook's Rest, they do not have the numbers necessarily to challenge in case, Daemon decides to attack, or that the House Black decides to bring more dragons. Now, at this point, they don't know, other than Rhaenys being dead and Meleys being dead, that they don't have dragon riders, or that they don't have enough dragons. Okay, so none of this is really explicitly known, but nonetheless, it's a matter of trying to get an army and get people together. Now, Aemon knows that Daemon would love to fight him, but at the same time, he's not really sure. And he talks about Harrenhal for a moment. He wants to capture Harrenhal. So the armies are marching there. However, they don't want to face a dragon and someone as fierce as Daemon without his help, because that would surely mean disaster. And so Aemon knows this, and at the moment, it looks like he's putting off facing Daemon, but I think he relishes the challenge. I think he really wants to go fight him, and he knows what's going to go down, but he's delaying it a bit. Alicent is not happy about her position on the council. Her voice is being drowned out. We've seen that for several episodes. At this point, Aemon has a conversation with her and relieves her of her duty on the small council. And at this point, Alicent has basically been relieved of any and all command or voice that she has. As a matter of fact, Aemon even makes it a point to tell his mother that he thinks she would rather focus more on domestic duties. So at this point, Otto Hightower has been relieved of his command of Hand of the King. Alicent is being pushed out of the small council. And now we see Aemon completely taking over completely, right? And so Alicent has no voice. She has no control. And this is her child, and yet she has no sway whatsoever over him. And so he's effectively taken her out of any kind of ability to make any decisions. We go to Team Black here, small council. And Rhaenyra is telling her council, we need to find people who have Targaryen blood that could ride dragons. Of course, they think it's a crazy idea, but she says, look, there are people who have enough blood in them from bastards and such that have been born to the Targaryen line, that are not highborn, that are not lords and such. And maybe they could ride dragons. They have dragons. They just don't have any riders. So she proposes someone, and they bring Lord Darklyn in to be the first one. And he obviously takes this from his queen, and he is quite honored. It is a dangerous situation because the worst could happen. The dragon may reject the rider. And if the dragon rejects the rider, that person's going to be burned to death. There's really no, or thrown off or whatever. And that could truly be, that could truly be obviously the danger in trying to, in trying to take control of a dragon. Most people look at dragons as gods. And if we saw back in the last episode, parading around a dragon head, Meleys' dragon head being paraded around in the city in King's Landing, a lot of people looked at that as the gods actually frowning upon that that's an omen, that's an ill omen. It's not a good thing. And so, dragons are considered gods by the small folk. And Lord Darklyn, even though he has standing, he is not a small folk, so to speak. He still looks at dragons as gods. And of course, he takes this honor willingly. He is going to go down into the dungeon, or down, where the dragons are kept, and he is going to take this dragon and become its rider. Now, he does have young children, but he knows the dangers. And so he's going to give it a shot. And he is honored by Rhaenyra. It's never been attempted before, but he will accept that risk with gladness. So we cut to Daemon, who's having another dream, another vision, and it's his brother Viserys. And Viserys is chastising him because Daemon joked about Viserys. He's talking about the heir for a day. He's talking about how he really did not have, he didn't want to be king. Viserys did not want to be king, but he accepted the role, and he took it with, did the best he could with it. And this is explained later on as Daemon has a chat with Alice Rivers. But nonetheless, Viserys was a good king, and he had peace his entire reign. But Daemon joked about it. Daemon always thought that he should have been king. What's going on? Wraith May says, pop in and say hi. I haven't seen the latest episode, so we'll chat during the week proper, and absolutely we will. Don't worry about it. I don't want to spoil you. I know this is a quick jump in for a lot of people, so by all means, if you have not seen this episode yet, please do not watch. Do not watch the replay. I mean, I do not want to spoil you until you've seen it. Maybe go back, watch the replay. I'm just going to go by kind of scene by scene and just talk about it. That's all. And considering the things that are going on in my life right now, I'm going to try to kind of go through it quickly and not take up too much of you guys' time. But nonetheless, so we see Daemon having this vision. He is, ends up having a conversation with his brother, and his brother basically, is upset. I mean, again, these are visions that Daemon is having. So it's not like this is actually him having this conversation or having had this conversation with Viserys in the past. But Viserys explains to him in this vision to Daemon that, look, he's always defended him. He's the only ally that he ever had on the small council, and yet Daemon never ever believed in his brother. He never took it seriously, and he was always upset that he was passed over for the crown. And in this vision, you think it's made to think kind of that Daemon is really kind of turned a corner, maybe. He's being shown things that he has always known but never wanted to face. And then he actually is told to leave, but he cannot get through the door. He can't break through. He's trying to, bust through, and he's like, open the door, please. And then actually, as he gets through, he goes up to Sir Strong at Harrenhal here, and now in the real world, and sticks a knife to his throat. And of course, Sir Strong has always been like, look, I'm here for you. I'm looking out for you. And I've never done anything, to usurp you or question you in any way. Now, he has been a little bit of an asshole, but nothing like that is offensible. And he's worried about him getting enough sleep. And then Daemon, says, are you the culprit that's been tampering with my peace? Are you trying to, undermine me in any way? Is it, these are reasons why I'm having these dreams? And Sir Strong is like, look, I've done nothing. Meanwhile, he's got a knife to his throat. And so Daemon is still out of control. He's got the knife to his lip, and finally Daemon stands down and backs away, and he tells Sir Strong, look, quit watching me. Don't bother me, don't interrupt me. And so the situation is at the very least put down. And so we get Daemon immediately, who decides to go out, and it looks like he's going to actually jump on Caraxes and fly away. However, he ends up running into Alice Rivers by the weirwood tree. And she pretty much informs him, look, things are going to change in a couple days, 3 days. You're going to see the winds are going to change. Daemon's not really happy, but then he actually asks for counsel from her. Now she says, it's funny you're asking me for my help. And he says, for counsel. And she says, look, things are going to change. There are forces at play that are older in this world than you or I. And you are just a piece on the board. Well, obviously that's not what he wants to hear, but after having all these visions and not being able to sleep and then turning on the people that have hosted him, call him king, or at least, king consort, he's at least listening. And she tells him that, look, we know you didn't want your brother to be king, but the people who have become king and queen, it's a burden. It's not something they love. It's a burden for them. And so Daemon actually kind of seems like he's coming around a little bit, and that she reminds him that his brother never really wanted it, but nonetheless, she counsels him. She says, "Look, take a little bit of time. In 3 days, the winds are going to change, and I will have something different from you, and we'll find out what that is near the end of the episode." But nonetheless, he asks for help for the Riverlands because he knows no one's going to raise their banners at this point, especially the way he treated them, the way that they got raised, the way their women got taken, their children got taken and held hostage for them. And so Daemon starts at least come around a little bit and ask for a little bit of help. He doesn't call it help, he calls it counsel, but he asks for a little bit of help. So Alice Rivers provides it, and she says in 3 days' time, the winds will shift, and they will, as we'll see. And she actually has a show it here on her arm, if we can get the shot. And she has an owl. So she has an owl in her employ, and the owl shows up. So we know that somehow, some way, she's going to use that. Now, me not being a book person, I know the owl is of significance. I don't quite know that. We get back to the where the dragons are being held, dragon pits, so to speak. And at this point, we see Lord Darkland is making his play for one of the dragons. And all seems well. They have the dragon keepers. Everybody's here. They're kind of keeping them at bay. They know how to talk to them in High Valyrian. And then Lord Darkland looks up and he sees, as a god to him, the dragon is a god. However, they tell him don't show any fear. So he tries his best not to. And as he approaches Sea Smoke seems to relent and actually lay its head down for him to mount. Now, in the books and in the lore, you can be a bastard son, you can be a bastard or a child of a Targaryen. You're not highborn. You're not a lord or a lady, so to speak. But if you have enough blood in your body, the dragon will sense it and allow you to become a rider. And Sir Darkland is their best candidate at this moment. So he goes to Mount Sea Smoke. He thinks he's done it. He gets really close. Sea Smoke rears up and ends up burning Lord Darkland where he stands. So he did not have enough blood in his body. So nonetheless, he ends up dying trying to become the first dragon seed, so to speak, because the dragon seeds are those who are not highborn but have enough Targaryen blood to ride dragons. And this idea was planted last episode by Jace to Rhaenyra, and they started looking through the scrolls, they started looking through the text, they started reading Valyrian history and Targaryen history, and they came across this idea because, again, they have dragons, they have no riders. Lord Darkland becomes the first casualty of trying this. Now, he accepted this role when he was told about it. He accepted it. Todd C says, rejected it. And Sea Smoke rejected Lord Darkland. Did not have enough blood. And so, and of course, how do you know, right? There's no test for this. You have to assume or think. And anyone that's crazy enough to stand in front of a dragon and try to ride one, you don't know. You're taking a huge chance. We'll see later on that it's not someone who takes a chance, but someone who actually is happened upon. But in this instance, Lord Darkland takes the chance. He knows what's involved. And unfortunately, he pays the price and he gets absolutely roasted, to the horror of everyone here. And I mean everyone. And it's brutal. As a matter of fact, Lord Darkland cuts his own throat, but it is not enough to save him from writhing around on the ground in that moment. And I don't even want to know what that's like. Aegon actually survived. Now, we've known in Game of Thrones, people say, well, Targaryens are fireproof. Well, that's not really true. The reason Daenerys was able to survive and have her hatchlings is because of magic at play, not just because she's Targaryen. But we saw Aegon, when he got burned by Aemon and Vhagar, that he did survive, but it's unusual. And a lot of that had to do with the fact he had Valyrian steel armor on. So we cut to the scene. We have Alan being called by Lord Corliss. There's his brother, actually. And they show his brother, and the reason they show his brother, because he's actually very important, and we'll find out later in the episode how important he is. But his brother's also a bit jealous. He also is kind of mad because he knows that both of them are bastard sons of Lord Corliss. They've never been raised up. They've never been appointed. They've never been recognized. However, Lord Corliss has afforded them the ability to make a living or work on his ships as seamen. And so while they've been afforded this opportunity, it's not exactly the best life. But we've seen with Game of Thrones that if you're not highborn, you're probably not going to live the best life. Even Jon Snow, who was afforded into Winterfell, was really shunned by, Sansa Stark, and was sent to the Wall, to be a member of the Night's Watch. But he was not appointed like a Lord of Winterfell when Ned left. So Alan and his brother are here. Alan gets called out by Lord Corliss, and Lord Corliss basically asks Alan if he'll be his first mate. Alan really doesn't want to do it, or at the very least, he's curious about why that he would be called upon. And I think Alan feels like it's Corliss, just, he's doing it because it's his son, but he doesn't really want to make it that it is his son. He's like, what's your motive here? And I think Corliss, for the most part, is feeling that the death of Rhaenys, his wife, and the fact that she felt that both boys, at the very least, she knew about one of them because the other one is in the shadows. But Alan here, she felt like he should be raised up and celebrated. He saved Lord Corliss's life when his ship was damaged, and he saved his life. And so Rhaenys felt like he should be raised up. However, that's something that Corliss never did. He's kind of hidden him and the other boy. It's not unusual for these men to go out and have other children and have bastard sons. So nonetheless, Corliss says, look, I would, like for you to be my first mate. And so Alan accepts begrudgingly, but he does accept. Maybe even if he doesn't accept, he is still expected to report the next day for his duties. So we see his brother here, who is the other son of Lord Corliss, and he's pretty upset because he's never even been recognized. He's ignored actually by Lord Corliss quite often. We cut back to King's Landing. And we see that another dragon seed right here is hearing about everything going down as far as the small folk and not being able to get food and everything. And so the small folk are talking about how the Prince Regent is, throwing parties, and in King's Landing, in the Red Keep rather, that everybody is having celebrations and parties and feasting and all this stuff. And the small folk are paying the price, unfortunately, that, they don't have enough to eat. And so they talk about King Viserys being a good man and the fact that he would never let this happen to the small folk. Hey, Daredevil Dave, what's going on? What's going on, buddy? There we go. How you doing? How you doing, man? If you hadn't seen this episode, Daredevil Dave, or you don't watch this show, it's one or the other. Then, if you don't want to be spoiled, don't really watch. But if you don't really care, then hang out for a little bit. I'm just gonna be rambling on about House of the Dragon episode 6. And so if you got nothing to do and you just want to hear me ramble for a bit, I don't blame you for dropping in and out. But I appreciate you dropping by anyway and saying hi. Definitely, man. And stick around as long as you want. But nonetheless, so we kind of get this scene to give an idea that, again, that the small folk are being neglected. No one is able to get food, and we cut back to Team Black at Dragonstone, and we see that she is getting the talking to, so to speak, from Sir Alfred, and he is giving her the business about the fact that they just literally had a knight get burned up alive by a dragon for attempting something so crazy. And this was not an idea that had been talked about for a while. This is something that Jace and Rhaenyra came up with, and they just decided to do it. The council was not really thrilled with it when they announced it earlier in this episode. But she's been completely challenged by Sir Alfred over and over and over. And she gives him a good slapping. She actually gives him a good slap, actually, right here. She turns around and just gives him the old 1-2. Well, the old 1 anyway. And hiya! So Rhaenyra is really tired of being pent up. She's tired of being in Dragonstone. She's tired of not being able to not being able to do anything about it. She's stuck. She's a queen. She wants to go to battle. She was never trained. So she's stuck. And she's being told by her council over and over and over again, you're the queen. If we lose you, all is lost. And that is true. That's very true. However, at the same token, she wants to do something about it. She doesn't really have an army. She doesn't have a land army at all either. She has a sea army. But the bottom line is that she really can't do anything about it. They have dragons, but they don't have enough riders. So this crazy concocted scheme that Jace and her came up with to find bastards that can ride these dragons is far-fetched for sure. However, at the same token, it's their only play because they really just do not have anything at their disposal other than dragons who have no one to ride them. It's like having nuclear weapons on your hands. Now, in your hands. Now, the thing of it is, the reason why probably the Valerians wrote this throughout history that only highborn and pure-blooded Targaryens could ride dragons is because, think of it, if everybody that had a little bit of Targaryen blood in their body thought they could possess a nuclear weapon, it would create chaos. So throughout the histories, it's been written that only pure-blood Targaryens can be dragon riders, but in reality, that's not the case. But again, you think about that. Only people that have pure blood, right, can ride dragons, but again, that's just so that people don't think anybody could do it. And if anybody could do it and could tame a dragon, then it could create a lot of problems. And we'll see that it kind of does, but I'm not going to get into that just purely for the fact that people that watch the show. And yeah, Todd C said, I don't mind the spoilers, and I read the outcome already, if that counts. Yes, if you read the books. Now, we are going to get thrown some differences, and one of those happens in a little bit. Not real thrilled about it. It is some current day politics stuff, but whatever. Nonetheless, so we have Rhaenyra. She's sulking. She's grabbing swords and kind of, holding a sword. And then we get Mysaria, who walks in, and she's looking at the situation. She says, "Look, we can fight this war on different fronts." She alerts her that the small folk are starting to get restless, and that in King's Landing things are really starting to go crazy. They're starting to blame the kingdom. They're starting to blame Aemon, Aegon, whomever is in charge. Doesn't really matter. And they're getting really, really restless. And this is their chance to actually do something about it. And they don't have to do anything by violence. There is a better way to attack this problem. Now we start to see Viseria and Rhaenyra get closer and closer together with each other. There is tension here. We've seen it. It's obvious they're playing it up. But nonetheless, Rhaenyra says, "Hey, look, it doesn't matter. The small folk can rise up, but Aemon's going to put them down." And that's exactly the point Viseria tries to make, is that, yeah, but the thing of it is, that's only going to stoke the flames even more so, is that if they attack the small folk, that's only going to make them even more upset. And so Viseria knows what's up. She's kind of been planted in this series to be an all-knowing, even though she was a hooker and she did whatever she had to do to make a living and all this stuff. She is kind of the whisperer, right? She's the whisperer for Rhaenyra. She is the Varys, or the Larys, so to speak, for Rhaenyra. And she has her ear to the nose to the grindstone, ear to the track, so to speak. She knows what's going on in the Red Keep. She knows what's going on in King's Landing, and she's getting information, and she's using that information. So in the show, they portray her as someone who is very smart, and it comes across as someone who is a small folk, so to speak, but is making a difference. Right, that is able to use subterfuge and go undercover, so to speak, and use that to her advantage and move in the shadows, and it works. So we cut back to King's Landing, and we see people waiting in line for food, and then they run out. There's not enough food, and people start to really become restless, and then they see a carriage being run through town with the gold cloaks, and there's a bunch of goats in it. Well, we know the goats are for the dragons. So the people get really upset about this, and you start to hear those grumblings. So we go back to the Greens, and we have Aemon. He's sitting with his council. He's wanting Tywin Lannister to break the blockade. Of course, Tywin was requesting that Aemon come down there to help. And at this point, he looks at Larys, and he says, "I need a new hand of the king." And Larys thinks that he's talking to him. He thinks that, he's asking him about it. And Larys is the one that says, "You need a hand. You need someone to help guide you to further your cause." Well, Aemon knows that Larys is a old Larry is a really funky dude. And he knows that he has his own plans in his mind. He was helping Aegon, and so, Aemon knows that. And now it looks like Larry is switching sides and trying to gain the favor of Aemon, which of course he is. However, he thinks that Aemon appoints him hand of the king, but he says, "No, I want you to find me a hand." And he says here, "No, not to serve as hand, you toad." He even calls him a toad. He calls him different names. He makes fun of him. Well, someone like Larry, that's not going to sit well. He's been made fun of his whole life because of his club foot and all that kind of stuff. He's crippled. But he's sacrificed a lot to come to this council. He transferred all of his wealth from Harrenhal. He leaves enough money there for them to have food and light the fires. But ultimately, at the end of the day, he sacrificed quite a bit to come here and try to make a difference. And now Aemon is kind of shoving him off and calling him names and saying, "Look, I want you to call Otto Hightower." So now Aemon wants Otto Hightower back. In the meantime, the Grand Maester walks in and says that Aegon has regained consciousness, if only for a few moments. Now, we saw that in last episode where Aegon was calling out to his mom, to Queen Alicent. And Aemon obviously knows this means a lot. He needs to go talk to him. He needs to make sure he's not going to say anything about what actually happened at Rook's Rest. So the Grand Maester comes in and he's all positive and he says, look, he may very well live. He regained consciousness. And so Aemon does not like this. But we get a shot of Larry right here. And Larry, he knows what he has to do. And if you don't know yet, you'll get it here momentarily. But Larry now, the wheels are turning, right? Because he's been made fun of. He has been shot down. He was working his way up. Now he is shot down. He realizes what Prince Regent Aemon is. And he knows that Aegon actually at least trusted him. So the wheels are turning in Larry's head now, too. So we cut to Aegon and we see he's getting treatment for his burns there. We get a good look at his neck, or his leg rather, too. And then he's visited by Aemon, who takes the little marble ball that's of the council, and he places it right on his chest. He puts it in his hand and then places it on his chest, which causes pain to Aegon. He then puts his hand on his head and kind of on his burns, and he causes him pain there. But he also says, what do you remember? And Aegon says, I remember nothing. Of course, Aegon is really playing this off right now. He remembers nothing, but he does remember. But he also knows it's in his best interest at such a vulnerable state right now to not say a word, because Aemon literally could have him killed, right? Doesn't matter. He is at the mercy of his brother. So the roles reverse, so to speak. Now, this is, and in some ways, Aemon, he's been made fun of his whole life. Aegon, once he became king, he was making fun of Aemon. He was going down, in the brothels, and, they caught him in bed with his first woman that he'd ever been with, which is the older hooker. And so he's making fun of him in front of his king's guard. He's embarrassing him. So Aemon, in some rights, you could understand why he would want to get back at his brother. Totally understandable. And so, he's putting the screws to him a little bit. And he's saying, look, are you going to tell people what I did at Rook's Rest when I burned the shit out of you? Or are you going to shut your mouth? Lewis Barry drops by for a minute, says, hi, how you doing? How do you, Lewis? Good to see you. Thanks for stopping by, man. Hang out for a little bit if you want to. Listen to me ramble on about House of the Dragon episode 6. If you have not watched it yet, I don't want to spoil it for you. If you don't care, I'd love for you to hang out for a bit. And but if you do care, I don't want you to be spoiled. I'd love for you to watch it. I think it's a wonderful show. It has great writing. It is a lot of setup this season. Doesn't have as many battles as I think everybody wanted so far. But that doesn't mean we're not going to get a couple more. We have 2 more episodes to go after tonight. Nonetheless, so Aegon now has been relieved of his command. He is invalid. He can barely speak, but he is awake. And he tells his brother, I don't remember anything. And his brother basically wants to keep it that way, right? Because otherwise that will undermine everything Aemon is doing right now as the Prince Regent / as the king at this moment. And he kind of makes it apparent to the Grand Maester who comes back in to the room that, he has a long recovery. He's and what he means by that is that he has basically convinced Aegon to not say shit. And if he doesn't say shit, it's like, he has a long recovery. He's not, he is going to pretend he is invalid and can't speak for the purpose of not dying, in essence. Nonetheless, oh man, Ronnie freaking Trick Shot, ladies and gentlemen, stopping in from the land down under. Good to see you, man. And look, I appreciate it. I try to be handsome, but it gets harder and harder the older we get. But thanks, Ronnie. I appreciate you, man, dropping by for a little bit. And I hope you're having a good day. Good day. It's like midday for you, right? Somewhere in there, 2 o'clock, somewhere in there. Nonetheless, so Aegon knows that Aemon is onto him. So his brother, there's no love lost there, right? We cut to the Erie, and we see Rhaena talking to Rhaenyra's kids. Okay, this is there's a lot of names in this show. All right, so this is Sir Kristen Cole's son. All right, and he's been sent away, to the Erie, and obviously Rhaena has been sent to help protect or look over dragon eggs. So this is kind of the safest possible place she could be. So they're having a conversation. She's trying to explain to her little brother. That's not little brother, little nephew. Good Lord. That look, I know you miss your mom, but this is a safe place for you to be. And as they come over the hill, they see that there are animals burned. They see a large burn mark. Now, Rhaena has been led to believe that there were no dragons protecting the Vale. She's been led to believe that there weren't any dragons other than the ones she brought. They're very, very small. The ones she brought with her are barely hatched, and the other ones are dragon eggs. So this is a huge surprise to Rhaena, and she's been lied to, obviously. So so we cut back, and she's back in the area, and she's playing with the kids, and then Rhaena expresses the fact that she knows at this point now that there is a large dragon that's around the Vale. Now, to her point, she doesn't know that this dragon isn't protecting. As a matter of fact, she's told that this is actually a wild dragon with no rider. So this brings on a whole nother facet to the war, to the families, because here's a dragon that's out and about eating sheep, eating goats, whatever. And who's keeping track of it? Does anybody know? Right? And when Rhaena tried to tame a dragon, it did not go well. And she was almost killed for it. So we know that she, at the very least, is not a dragon rider or going to be a dragon rider, because she was not able to actually tame dragon. She did not see the movie How to Tame Your Dragon. But nonetheless, we cut back to Driftmark. We see that Alan and his brother are having a conversation. His brother's very upset about Alan. He keeps shaving his head. Now, the reason he's shaving his head is because he doesn't want to let on that he's part Targaryen, right? He's Valyrian, but he's also Targaryen. He has Targaryen blood. He has the blonde hair, right? He has the blonde hair, so he's shaving his head. And he's been doing this basically his whole life because he really doesn't want to be known or found out or questioned by any of his shipmates or anything like that. But his brother's kind of pissed because he's like, look, our dad, Lord Corliss, has really ignored us our whole life. We've been living, in the shadow of the Sea Snake's castle, and yet we could have servants. We could be rich. We could have whatever we want. And Alan doesn't really want anything to do with that. And his brother is jealous because now Alan has been asked to be first mate. He's been asked to help take charge of the Sea Snake ship. And so that's a step up. But overall, for both of them, they're bastard sons, and they're left in the lurch, right? They feel like they should be in court. They should have a voice. But in this world, that's not how it works, and you're almost better off not being in charge of anything or next in line or being an heir, because that means you have a greater chance of being killed. But his brother is really, fascinated with the crown, but his father does ignore him and his brother Alan, and so Todd C says, tuning into hang on, tuning into YouTube while working is a luxury. I feel you, man. I wish I could do that while I was at work as much as I watch it, but when I'm bartending, there's just no opportunities really to watch anything at all. Even if I take a smoke break, you only get about 4 or 5 minutes to suck one down and then try to watch something. So it's almost not even worth it. And if I remember, I'll tell you a little story. Lewis Berry also says that this is the weakest episode so far this season, but has great moments. And yes, Emma Darcy is crushing it. I do agree with that. And I'm not saying this is a great episode. I do appreciate some of the moments in it, like you as well. I do agree with you. And again, we get a lot of setup. We've gotten so much setup. There are some slow moments. Daemon at Heron Hall, that keeps happening. It's like, okay, we're going to speed this up, or we're going to get to the meat of it, and I think we will. But unfortunately, it's probably going to be next episode, because traditionally, the way Game of Thrones and the way that these shows go, the penultimate episode is the one that has a lot of action and a lot of shit go down. And then the last episode has a lot of setup, a lot of aftermath, and a lot of setup. And I think we're going to get that, but I think it won't sit as well with people because of the fact that we haven't had as many battles, or at least as much action. But that's also not unusual for the Game of Thrones or the Song of Ice and Fire. It is political intrigue. There's a lot of back stuff going on behind the scenes, and again, a lot of setup. And there is a lot of setup in this episode, but I'm glad we do get some of it. But I do agree with you in a sense. Is it the weakest episode? I'm not sure. I need to go back and kind of culminate and look at all of them together. But I did like what I saw tonight. So nonetheless, I do love this line by Alan: the sea snake would sooner have high tide claimed by the sea than Corliss' sons. And that has a lot to do with the way he feels. That has a lot to do with while he is just, he's not thrilled with being named first mate, because he knows a lot of his crewmates know who he is. A lot of people know who he is. Hell, Rhaenys walked up to him and saw him and touched his face, and she knew who he was. And that's the first time I think she's ever seen him, at the very least. And yes, 3-star draw. He pops in. He just finished the episode. And he says, "Well, just finished it. We sure knew that was coming." Yes, and at the beginning of this, I mentioned that we had seen the tension rising, and we saw it episode after episode, scene to scene. And and not real thrilled about that. That is a book change. There was no history for that, none whatsoever. And so that is something that they wanted to throw in for real world politics. That there is no other reason or way about it. That is exactly why. And I would tell you that if you look into the history of that decision, you will find out that that is the reason why they made that decision. But we'll get to it. So nonetheless, again, Rhaenyra, she's looking out over the sea. Jace comes up, and he's a little worried. He's like, "Look, there's others out there." Rhaenyra obviously is like, "Look, how many people are going to want to try to tame a dragon after that situation? After Lord Darkling got burnt alive trying it, how many people are going to want to try it?" Because again, there's no blood test. There's no way to know how much Targaryen blood that you have in your body. And there's a certain amount, but how can you test that? There's no way to test that. So anybody that's going to try to tame a dragon is at their peril. And I'd say most people, it would be perilous for them to try it. But nonetheless, they do have a good conversation. And then we see Mysaria come in a moment. And she says, "I need a word with the queen." But actually, she goes ahead and says in front of Jace, "Our gift has been sent." The gift, we find out in the very next scene, are boats. Boats delivering supplies. And we have our guy out here searching for crabs or whatever. And he looks up, he sees the boat, he opens it up, he sees it's got vegetables in it, he looks out, and we see multiple boats coming into shore that have been sent from Dragonstone or wherever, and they have food in them. Now, again, here's the deal. And a 3-star sent them fool some apples. Yes, now obviously not just apples, but here's the deal. So Dragonstone is literally a day away from King's Landing, right? Like it is not far away. It's very close. So for some people saying, well, how do they send fresh food and it get there, it would spoil and all that. Well, it's actually not a very far travel by sea. It's very close. And yeah, Lewis Berry, yeah, Emma's great. And we'll see if we get young Allison too. Both women are fantastic in these roles, and their younger counterparts were great as well early in midway through the first season, up until the midway point in the first season. I thought they were both great. That time change was handled wonderfully. Nonetheless, so we see the supplies show up to King's Landing, and meanwhile, we see Alicent here. She's sitting in her chambers. The Grand Maester, comes to her and lets her know that it's going to be a long road for Aegon. It's going to be painful, but he has a chance to recover. But she also understands that he's never going to be the same. She has also sent ravens to her father, Otto Hightower, who has also been requested by Aemon to become Hand to the King again. However, Alicent sent in letters probably for a different reason. He has not responded, and that kind of brings worry actually to her because they have not heard from him. And then we get a scene here describing, as far as the Reach is concerned, House Beesbury has raised arms against the Hightower host, and what that means is that the Hightowers have kind of have this tower, or I say have this tower, have this castle, have these people, and the House Beesbury has decided to raise their arms, and probably for Rhaenyra, knowing Otto is there. Obviously, she has no idea if her father's alive or not. Aegon is here resting. I'm sure he's listening to all of this, hearing all of this. So Alicent decides to go light some candles to wish the soldiers good luck, and on her way she runs into her brother Sir Gawain. They have a good conversation. She asks about her and Sir Criston Cole's son, and he's doing well. He mentions that the Red Keep is not a great place to send to have young men learn, and this conversation really is she's asking about her son. She hasn't seen him. She had to send him away, right? Because it's a bastard son. It's also, he Sir Criston Cole was the head of the King's Guard, eventually the Hand of the King, but her relationship with him is very illegal. So she wants to know about her son. Her son is doing well. Sir Gawain tells her he's a great lute player as well as with a sword. He is very kind and has grown up, at 16 years old to at least, to be a really fine young man. And so that brings her some comfort. She worries about their father. And Sir Gawain has heard nothing from Otto as well. But nonetheless, he has to ride out with Sir Criston Cole. They're about to march on. And so Alicent is looks over, sees Sir Criston. They share a glance, but obviously she has renounced him, so to speak, or whatever. She's, he's not supposed to even speak her name. But they share a glance as he rides off. And at this point, we do not know if they will ever see each other again. So they ride off. Alicent goes to Helena. At this point, I say the queen, but her husband has been deposed. She is messing with her bugs. She has an extensive bug collection. She also has dragon dreams. So if you don't know this, Helena has dragon dreams. She can see the future. She doesn't understand these dreams. We talked about it last stream. She doesn't know what they mean, but they're inscribed all over her room. They are everywhere. She has drawn on the wall. She has written them in books. She's written them on tables. She's written them on table legs. She inscribed stuff all over. She has seen the future. She has seen Jon Snow. She has seen Daenerys. Right? She's seen Ned Stark. She's seen Joffrey. She's seen everything happen, but she doesn't understand these dreams. But she also has an extensive bug collection. And she does mention when Alicent walks in that one of the bugs has stopped singing. Now, I don't know what kind of bugs she has. These are crickets or whatever. But she mentions one of them has stopped singing. Now, I don't know the relevance of that. And I'm going to have to go back and watch somebody who's much smarter than I. I'd love to be able to tell you what that means. If you ever want to watch a good recap, and someone who goes on Wikipedia and pulls up all the lore and then just regurgitates it for you guys, it's called Emergency Awesome. If you ever want to look up Emergency Awesome, is a channel that will give you all of that information that you may want to seek out. But he just goes on Wikipedia or House of Dragonopedia or whatever the hell it's called, and he just pulls that information and then puts it in a clear and concise video for you to watch. But it is pretty good. He does a good job. But that's all it is, right? So, but Emergency Awesome, pretty cool channel. Nonetheless, Alicent comes to her and she's like, hey, would you like to go light some candles with me? They make their way to the Septum to go light some candles. Meanwhile, we have Hugh, who is walking down the streets and he sees people. He number one, he sees the rat catcher's dog, which I thought was really funny here. He reaches down to pet the rat catcher's dog. We've seen the rat catcher's dog in several shots throughout the last several episodes. He even literally sat there as the rat catcher who was killed early this season, hung from the walls and rotted away. The dog was there even when the body was being taken away. So we see Hugh reaching down and petting the dog. And then all of a sudden, people are running through the streets carrying, carrying sacks full of lettuce and apples and things. You see here. And so he's like, what's going on? And he's told, Rhaenyra sent ships. She sent ships. She's heard the small folk. She knows we're struggling, even though she's not living here. And then you get a shot of people running through the streets in King's Landing. And so Hugh kind of goes to investigate. He ends up stealing a bag of fruit and vegetables from a guy. He literally punches him and just takes it from this guy, which in one way I understand. And another way I'm kind of like, damn, man, like what an asshole, but I get it, right? He has a sick daughter. His wife's been on his ass about what's going on. And so probably all of that culminated into him punching this guy and taking his bag of goodies, right? See this guy, he runs up, kind of runs into him, and then look, he just gives him the old 1-2, socks him, steals his bag. And it's like, okay, Hugh, you're an asshole. Now notice Hugh's hair though, right? You notice Hugh's hair, right? So nonetheless, we see another shot of all the people running through King's Landing down the streets here. And there we go. And so, nice little shot. 3-star Jaw says, Jack, move, fool. That's my lettuce. Ain't no joke. Some people might consider other things called lettuce, but I don't think that's what Hugh's looking for. So anyway, so nonetheless, we see the Kingsguard come in. Kingsguard comes into Helena and Alicent. And they're like, look, we got to go. And of course, they're interrupted lighting candles. This is very unusual to happen. But as soon as they make their way outside and see the crowds and see everybody, busting in, they're like, holy crap. And so they're trying to get him to safety. The Kingsguard are escorting the best they can. But if you see this crowd right here, there is a ton of people and they're blocking the entrance. So we get a scene where Helena, and you see her closing her ears. Again, she's extremely sensitive. She's an odd person, but that's because she's a seer. Crowds are not her thing. If you remember going back a few episodes when her son was killed in the bed, she didn't want to go to the funeral. She didn't want to ride in the funeral procession. She thought it was, just She didn't want to be around the crowds and all that. And it actually turned into a pretty frightening scene to an extent. But at that time, it's because they were gathering the support of the small folk. In this instance, they've completely turned because of the all the food is going to the dragons and to feed the troops, and the small folk are not getting paid and they're not being able to eat. And you have all these people in your kingdom, in your castle, at least within the gates, and they're going to grow weary and pissed off, and that's what's happening here. So they're trying to rush them to safety. We do see a terrible scene where an older gentleman grabs the queen. He calls her the queen dowager, but calls her the queen, and his hand gets chopped off by one of the king's guard. Of course, Allison is horrified by this, and she's telling the king's guard, "Sheathe your swords, sheathe your swords." Yes, 3-star draw. This was an excellent scene, and you see the tension. They get kind of pushed up against this gate, and when I saw it, the gate they were pushed up against, and I'll kind of cut through this. It had spikes on it. It almost looked like how people have shutters on their house, or a lattice or something like that. But it literally had spikes on it, and they're kind of pushed up against it. And I thought, oh my gosh, something's about to happen to one of these girls. But they're able to get both of them inside of a cart here. And then kind of the personal protector for Queen Alicent is taken down, and he's being just kicked and just brutally beaten by the townsfolk, the small folk. But they're able to get both of them to safety. They're inside. They keep hearing people shouting, "Long live Queen Rhaenyra." So at this point, Alicent understands that like the tide has turned, right? The tide has turned, and there is going to be more turmoil and more hell to pay with that. But we see the crowds building up here, as that's the septum. And as they're trying to get away, we see the crowds coming in and everybody's shoving in, right? So at this point, we cut back to Aegon, and he is visited by Larry. And Larry comes in, and I thought this was a good scene too, because Larry, he even cries during this scene. So we know Larry to be like the master of whisperers for for Aegon. He's worked his way into the council as a clubfoot. He is a cripple, but he's made his way into the high council, and now he is really being put to the test by Aemon. And he decides, after being disrespected by Aemon and told to find a hand to the king, which I think Larry probably thought was going to be his position, Larry makes his way to Aegon's bedside. And as they're giving him milk of the poppy, Larry takes it away. And what he's trying to do here is kind of what happened with Viserys at the end of his life. Viserys was on the milk of the poppy so bad that he couldn't make decisions. He really couldn't rule. It just, like it says here, the drink takes pain away and dulls your mind, though. And that's what happened. Viserys was in so much pain to an extent that he got addicted to just being cared for and drinking milk of the poppy. And it's a pain reliever. It's like opiate, whatever you want to call it. And so he became ineffective as a leader, and that's where Alicent was ruling in his stead. Well, Larry knows that, right? He knows what this does. So he is trying to encourage Aegon, deal with the pain. You can do it. Deal with the pain. Your mind is the only thing you have left. Your body is broken. You will never be the same. But the one thing you do have is your mind. So this is Larry basically setting up an ally, again, one he already had. But he also tells Aegon, your brother is taking control. And now that he's taking control, your life is in danger. And you need to understand that. And so he and Aegon have a conversation. I think Aegon understands that. But, a great scene, actually, really, because Larry does cry. And what he's doing is he's telling the story of his birth. He's telling how that, his father, when he was born, he had this misformed foot, and that his father said it was sorcery, and someone in the house cursed them and was speaking ill omens. And he talks about, hey, people are they're gonna try to they're going to look at you, whether it's in your presence or behind your back, and they're going to talk about you. They're going to look at you, and they're going to feel bad for you, or they're going to talk about you, whatever it is. But in the middle of him saying that, he's really talking about himself and his own experiences at Harrenhal. And I just thought it was a really great scene of Larry. We, at the very least, get to see a human side of him that's not just this conniving, but at the same time, he is conniving in this moment. So Aegon hears this entire conversation, and he says, "Look, your life's in danger. Let me help you." And we will see what that means. We'll see what that comes to pass. But it looks like Larry is definitely going to be helping Aegon survive, or at the very least, get back somehow. Now, in the books, Aegon actually returns, and Sunfire returns. Sunfire's not dead. Aegon doesn't die. He actually returns to battle. He recovers in the books, but obviously we know this show is going a different direction. And Lewis Berry says, glad we got Patty back. I apologize for the delay, but for some reason StreamYards is on a delay when I click on something. Glad we got Patty back. He should have been nominated for season 1. I wholeheartedly agree. His performance in season 1 was fantastic, and he should have been nominated. He should have won some awards for that performance, especially him walking across the great hall to the throne to sit down when his family's staring at him in a completely silent scene. I thought he should have been nominated. But nonetheless, so yes, 3-star draw. He is working an angle here. Yes, he is. And so nonetheless, this scene concludes. And so we know that Larry's going to do his best to figure out how to help Aegon. But yes, he is running a game for sure. Now we cut back to Daemon having another vision. And this is Viserys standing over their dead mother. And at this point, Daemon actually hugs his brother, who's in mourning over their mother. And I think this is him somewhat learning from his visions, learning from him resisting. He's been an asshole for decades, right? And in Viserys' time of need, when their mother passed away, Daemon wasn't there. But in this vision, he says, "I am here for you." And he hugs his brother as he's breaking down, and their mother is lying on the table, and she's passed away. And we somewhat see this as maybe Daemon coming around, right? A little bit. Understanding that, his dreams and everything, have some kind of meaning. Alice Rivers has tried to talk to him about this, and he says, "You needed me and I wasn't there." And so then all of a sudden he looks up. We're back in present time. And there again is Sir Strong, and he's there again, even though after being threatened prior, he's there. And then he brings news that the Tullys have actually raised their banners. Lord Grover, who was in ill health, if you remember, Lord Grover was in bad health, and they were I say waiting. It was not that they were waiting on him to pass away, but no one can make a decision whether to support Daemon or who to support, because Grover was in charge, still alive, even though he was catatonic. So now that he has passed away, that means that Oscar Tully is now Lord Paramount of the Riverlands. And of course, we know that Oscar Tully was called upon to support Daemon. And yet he deferred and said, I can't speak for my grandsire. Well, his grandsire's passed away. Now, Sir Strong makes a mention that the all the healers and people for Grover Tully could not, do anything for him. And so Alice went to help out and employed every technique that she could. And Daemon understands that after their conversation, what she meant was the winds were going to change as she went to go help. And she probably sped along the passing of one Lord Grover. I think that's what we're taken to mean by that. Alice Rivers volunteered her renowned skills, and her skills were probably speeding it along. And Daemon says, holy moly, something finally happened. And he starts to laugh, so to speak. He's crying tears of joy because she told him the winds were going to change in 3 days. And that's exactly what happened. All right. So I will give $5 to anybody that can tell me the name of Alan's brother right here. Anybody able to tell me what the name of this guy is? Because I am struggling with that. I'm going to look it up because I got to. Sorry, y'all. I've got to. Adam. Okay. So here's Adam Valerion. Adam is on the beach, and he looks up, and there is the wild dragon. This is the wild dragon that's been flying around, that's been eating and burning stuff at the Vale. And it's quite a large dragon. And he sees it, and then it starts to chase him. He runs into the forest. He thinks that he is at least safe in the forest. Your Jack, it's not your Jackie, whatever it's called. He runs in the forest. He thinks he's safe. He trips and falls over the side of a little, not a cliff, but kind of a dirt outcropping, whatever. And he comes face to face with said dragon. And as he's face to face with said dragon, you would think at this point the dragon would burn him, but you see the look on his face at this point. He's not scared. He is actually not scared. He does look like Milli Vanilli, 3-star, but the one thing we do know is that he's not scared because actually, and whether he feels the connection to the dragon, at this moment we don't know, but we assume that's what's happening because you see how relaxed he is. He's breathing hard, but his breath starts to slow down. The dragon is staring at him, but it is not attacking. At this point, we cut to Mysaria talking to Rhaenyra about the fact that those ships showed up to King's Landing. And yeah, Ronnie Trickshot, you're right. It is Adam, actually. And I had to look it up. This whole time, Alan and Adam, of course, it makes sense. But I knew Alan's name, but Adam, was said probably one time. Literally one freaking time in this entire series so far. And so, but we get Mysaria, and she says, look, the banners were carried from the ship into the city, right? So the ships showed up with the supplies. The small folk are talking. Things are about to get real interesting. And actually, yes, let me come on, StreamYard. You let me down here. You let me down. There we go. Let's get Ronnie up here real quick. Ronnie to the main stage. All right. Hopefully it's not freezing. StreamYard's giving me some issues here for some reason. I don't know what's going on with it. All right. So anyway, golly, man. Maybe StreamYard doesn't play well with Windows 11. Maybe that's what it is. Ronnie Trickshot says, "Where's my $5? Because that's 10 Australian. Is that like $5 US? I don't know. I know things are very expensive for y'all down there, though. That much I do know. So nonetheless, Mysaria is telling Rhaenyra all about the fact that the ships landed. They provided supplies for the small folk. And hey, Jay Gonzo, what's really going on? However, this conversation, they talk about the fact that Rhaenyra, she really didn't want the throne, but it made her father happy. Let's see. Golly, man. Jay Gonzo, I apologize. I'm trying to bring it up, but StreamYard is really struggling right now for some reason. Giving me some serious issues, freezing and stuff. It's good to see you, man. Let's see. We click through this scene a little bit. Obviously, Mysaria knows that, Daemon is key. But she also thinks, because she also had relations with Daemon, right? As a matter of fact, Rhaenyra encouraged Mysaria to have relations with Daemon. And she says, look, I think I've lost him. I think he's raising his own banners. He's trying to raise his own army. He doesn't care about me. And Mysaria says, look, it's just his way of disappearing. This is what he does. He disappears. When he doesn't get his way, he disappears. He pouts like a child. And Rhaenyra knows that, they can't just take Vhagar alone. So they need dragon riders. They need people that can ride dragons. And of course, Daemon has, at this point now, a great dragon. And yet he's MIA, right? And is he taking up his own army? Does he want to claim the crown? That's all he's ever said this whole time, is that Rhaenyra doesn't deserve it. And he's told Alice Rivers this, and he says that people won't support her. So yes, in a sense, he is raising his own army, and he is going behind her back. Nonetheless, right here, and she says, and even if we somehow, took over, how will I, rule a kingdom? Even if we somehow prevailed, how will I rule a kingdom when my own son doubts me? Because yes, at this point now, her son is starting to doubt her. Now they came up with a plan to find dragon seeds, but Jace is not really thrilled. He didn't even know that she sent the boats with supplies. He doesn't know much about what's going on at King's Landing. She hasn't even mentioned. And then we get Mysaria tell the story of how she got her scars and the fact that her father abused her, and if you know what I mean. And she was kind of unfortunately a victim to her father, and her father tried to get her pregnant. And so when it didn't happen, he gave her a scar, but also he made it so that she could not get pregnant. So she kind of tells Rhaenyra her story, and then Mysaria plays up Rhaenyra, and at this point, it's flirting. And you can see the look on her face there. She believes she's meant to be queen, and then they hug, and then we get, oh, smell my neck, baby. Hang on a second. Hang on. God, come on, StreamYards. You're really letting me down right now. Like, super letting me down. Damn. I got to make sure that Windows 11 doesn't just crash StreamYards altogether. Well, okay. Well, anyway, I was going to play a funky little ditty while I talked about this scene, but who cares? It doesn't matter. I can't. StreamYards is really freezing up on me, so screw it. Anyway, boy, this is a wonderful episode right here. This is about as good as it gets for anybody. Nonetheless, so they start to, neck and kiss, and ultimately, at the end of the day, it seems that they are going to have an affair. Um, oh, there we go. A little bit more of it. Little necking, little kissing, little longing, needing someone. Yeah, I agree. Gives the old Sleepy Joe neck stiff, and it's on like Scarlet and Jinx. Yeah, if you've read the new Scarlet book, that is correct. Since they have proposed that whole idea to us. Here we go. God, if I can just anyway. All right. So they start making out. We get this scene with Mysaria. They've been setting this up for episodes, really, and it's kind of a bummer, to be honest with you, because this is different than the books. We don't need this. How in the world they're going to pay this off, I do not know. Do you want it paid off? Does anybody need this paid off? They've set this up and they've worried to death about it, but in reality, like, we don't need this at all. But whatever, they've set it up, so it is what it is. Nonetheless, they're interrupted, and the interruption is that there is a dragon, and it's got a rider, and it's flying around. And Rhaenyra said, "What a day! Jesus Christ! I mean, oh, hey, you know what? Bullshit. Fuck it. I'm about to give y'all a play-by-play of this shit. Tired of this bullshit. God damn it! Fucking internet bullshit." Anybody watching this stream, just understand how pissed off I am. I am so tired of this shit. So here's our funky ass music. That's right. Some prawn. And we get two chicks, and they're gonna start making out. Two chicks making out. Get funky. Wow. Two chicks making out, get funky, yeah. All right. Anyway, you get the idea. All right. So they're interrupted, and yes, there is a Dragonrider. There's a dragon out there. It's the wild dragon from the Vale. And it has a rider now. And everybody's like, who in the hell could that possibly be? They go down to the dragon pits. And Jace is like, hold on. My idea actually is working. It did have merit. And they see someone riding a dragon. Well, we obviously know that is our homeboy, Adam. Adam's riding the dragon. Now, how he knew how to fly to Dragonstone or where to go or whatever, who knows? But obviously, he knows what's up. And I'll kind of give you an idea of the scene. Comes flying out and down the mountain. Anyway, so you know what? Let's see. Oh, yeah. I guess it's not showing y'all shit because StreamYard decided to take a dump on my computer. There he is. They go down. We see Adam here flying on the dragon, so they know that, yes, they can actually have dragon seeds. people without full-born blood. And because I got this song playing, I'm gonna let y'all check this out a little bit. Oh, get funky, yeah. Let's make out, girl. Come on, girl. I don't even know you. Well, why not? All right. Anyway, it sounds like some of the people I know in real life. All right. So look, as entertaining as this possibly was, I do appreciate y'all hanging out for a minute. At least just, chilling, man. I do like to go live, but also get a little goofy. I do like this show. I do think this episode, as some have said, was not the best episode. I agree with that. I don't think this was the best episode. Again, a lot of setup, which we've gotten in a lot of episodes. A lot of setup, not a lot of action, but I'm okay with that personally. But I can understand why people maybe would not be okay with that, because it does seem like it may drag a little. Daredevil Day says, "Got to crash, guys. Catch you on the flip side." Thanks, Dave. Thanks for stopping in and just chilling, man, and listening to me ramble on. I do appreciate it, and hopefully get you some rest, man. Have a good day tomorrow. Nonetheless, been kind of a tough day, and having to keep track, and of course some things going on with my mom and her best friend that I mentioned at the top of the show. So things are a little out of sorts. I apologize for that. But anyway, good little rundown, just for the hell of it. Like I said, thanks for anybody dropping in. Not much else to really go over. I will be going over this episode with Matthew Matson on Tuesday, but it's definitely going to be a drive-by. We're not going to spend 2.5 hours on it. And try to confine that to about maybe 40 minutes or so, and really just kind of go through it, get his thoughts about it, what he thinks. That'll be at obviously 10 Eastern on Tuesday. And so if you feel like tuning in for that, we're going to pull up a couple other stories. And then Wednesday night at 9 Eastern, going to be with Down South 77, a.k.a. 3-Star Draw on his channel, 47's Wild. And we'll have some San Diego Comic-Con stuff probably to talk about coming up, a couple other things as well. And then we'll go from there, right? Jay Gonzo, you have a good night, man. Now that StreamYards is actually working good for me, and I can bring up the chat quickly, it's great. Yeah, Ronnie Trickshot, have a good night, man. Thanks for stopping in too. I will check you guys later on, and see you Tuesday evening. I hope you guys have a good Monday. And again, thanks for stopping by for a little bit, just kind of giving me a bit of your time, man. It's always appreciated, and try to tighten things up next time, man. Y'all have a good night. Thank you.